Welcome to BlackUSA.News Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Hey, all my people out there in internet land. Today is Friday, January 14th. Wow, wow. The biggest story in Baltimore is that the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, has been indicted. We're not going to talk about that a lot on the show today because today I have an opportunity to introduce you to another dope person I know, Khadijah Ali-Coleman. I'm sorry, excuse me, Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman. The doc is going to be here to talk to us about homeschooling in the Black community. A lot of people they're starting to understand, especially since we've gone to remote learning, they're starting to understand a lot of the gaps that were evident to some of us working in education in the educational system. They have started to understand, like, well, wait a minute, how come they don't know this already? And they're starting to understand that they weren't necessarily a really active partner in their child's education, and they want to take a greater accountability. But some of them, I mean, let's be honest, some of us wasn't even good with that old math we were doing when we were there, talking about us sitting at home trying to teach them, because they got this issue. They got this new thing where when you are multiplying, you take it and then you make sticks, and then you take the sticks and you count the sticks on the 10 section, and then you subtract something. And again, not knocking it, because the answer comes out right. Like, it always comes out right. But I'm like, why the hell you had them damn sticks? I was confused when they moved from numbers to letters, and now they got sticks. So I'm sorry. This is why I wouldn't homeschool, because it makes me nervous. I'm like, because I get frustrated trying to learn it. But what Khadijah has, excuse me, Dr. Ali-Coleman, so it's gonna be a problem, because I have literally known this woman my entire adult life. Like. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. My entire adult life, I had been an adult for like 2 months. It was 2 months, and then I met her. So other than those 2 months, I have known her, and she has been an influence in my life for the interceding decades. So I got to remember that this is Dr. Ali-Coleman, published author, lecturer, and academic, and not Khadijah. And we need to go grab some ice cream sometime soon. But it's okay. So back to what I was saying about Marilyn Mosby. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Like, Donnie had a great show last night. Actually, he had Roya Hanna, who is also running for state's attorney in Baltimore against Marilyn Mosby, on the show, and really trying to talk through what that looks like and the implications it has for Baltimore. So let me be clear. I told you guys, I don't keep it 100 with you, but I'll keep it 85. I am a fan of Marilyn Mosby. So I want you to understand that going in. I don't want to try to act like there's some bias and I'm trying to be objective. I'm absolutely not. I'm a fan of Marilyn Mosby because of the way she engages the community. Her solutions don't fit the typical mold of what we normally assume needs to happen in communities with high crime. But guess what? The typical mold hasn't worked. Here. So she's taking some innovative steps. Is she making mistakes? Absolutely. Hell yeah. But it's the job. She's trying something different and she's trying to make it work. I'm a fan. But at the same time, I do understand the need to have ethics and roles where you are given the public trust. There's nobody who's watching her, or inspector generals and things like that, but she gets to make literally life and death decisions with the stroke of her pen. So ethics are important. And so I'm waiting to get some more facts, but I'm letting y'all know I'm biased. And I also want to make sure that we all check our biases. And figure out, what facts do we have that align with the stories in our head, or are we looking for facts to justify the stories in our head? So, for example, as a fan, story in my head is reading the articles. And again, I'm not a prosecutor, but reading the article, story in my head is that she says she had some losses due to COVID, She's making $248,000 as state's attorney, but this whole deal was part of her real estate business. So if she wasn't making money on the real estate side, it was a loss. So again, but I realized that that's the story in my head because I'm a fan. I know that some of the people, some of her detractors, the story in their head is that, see, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is a demonstration of her lack of ethics and character because she said that she had coronavirus losses during the coronavirus and blah, blah, blah. And again, not knocking you, but I know that I am looking for facts to make this story make sense in the way that I want to. I just want to make sure that you ask yourself the same question. Like I said, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. And especially for me, because, we talk about women's issues on the show a lot. There's this intersection that this represents. So outside of Marilyn Mosby, there's a larger part of this conversation about what are the expectations of politicians? What are our expectations of Black women politicians? And how does that intersection work with the idea of ethics and leadership? Because, let's be clear. I don't see this as a big a deal as going bankrupt several times on the way to office, literally cheating your supporters and your clients out of stuff, or grabbing them by the pussy. If we're going to talk about something, let's talk about it. This is a private business deal. And again, I am waiting to get more information before I make a judgment, but I'm letting you all know where I'm coming from. And more than happy to have somebody who has a different story in their head come and talk to me about it, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not looking at this appropriately. Maybe my fandom is getting in the way. I'm okay with that. Help me understand. So that's where we are right now. That's what's happening. So I just wanted to make sure we talked about that, because one of the things I hate when something big comes on and people try to act like because it doesn't align with them, they ignore it. Well, we're not going to talk about. I'm a fan of Marilyn Mosby. This doesn't look good for her, so you know what? We're not going to talk about that. We're going to wait till I find some more facts to justify where I want. Then I'm going to bring all those. Nah. That's not even how we do it. That there's so many times that happens in our community, and it leads us to a point where, what are we doing with the honesty? How do we have accountability when we're not even dealing with the facts of the matter? Everybody's just trying to rush and make a story in their head happen. As you all remember from the co-parenting show I did, I think it was Monday, that was one of my biggest problems in marriage. I had this image of who my family was supposed to be, and rather than appreciating and loving them for who they are, I was trying to get us to be this thing. And I realized how detrimental the stories in my head were in my personal life. And so I try to make sure that I'm at least honest with myself when they exist. And because y'all come and listen to me, y'all want some level of authenticity. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. All right, so that was, you hadn't anticipated talking about that today. So just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with that. Oh, I got to talk about the people that pay the bills, though. Got to talk about the people that pay the bills. I want to say thank you to Edible Arrangements in Govins and Randallstown and out in Pittsburgh. Like I told you all yesterday, if you want to make William happy, you can go ahead and get him a pineapple with white chocolate on it, and that'll do it. He will be grateful for that. Murphy Falcone Murphy, like I tell you all every day, if you are looking for a law firm that is actively engaged in making sure that Black issues are heard in places of power and politics, you need to call at Murphy Falcone Murphy. Judge Bill Murphy, he has been an icon of civil rights, justice, and equality for Black people in Baltimore and throughout hell nationally for like 3-4 decades. Like when I was not understanding that I was even a human person, he was out fighting for it. So they've been in the game a long time, and they're tried and true. Darker Than Blue Girl, like one of the problems with the show being in the morning is that I'm hungry because I don't really do breakfast well, because I'm always concerned, like if I eat breakfast before the show, then I might be belching a little bit, get a little sleep, because when I eat good. So like the itis, nodding off during the show, that is not a good look. So I see this every morning about Darker Than Blue. I'm like, oh, I cannot wait. But guess what? It's the weekends, baby. who gonna go and get him some food from Darker Than Blue this weekend? This guy's right here. All right. What else? Who else? Oh, so talking about justice, J. Wendell Gordon. J. Wendell is the warrior lawyer. Like, that is his tagline, and he's earned it. You know, some people call themselves, like, it's one of those things, like, when you make up your own nickname, like, so, okay. So I was telling people, like, when I had grandkids, I wanted them to call me Big Daddy. Because, like, when I saw on Golden Girls, I used to love Golden Girls. And if you had a problem with it, you come say something. I dare you. So I used to love Golden Girls, and Blanche used to refer to her dad as Big Daddy, and she used to say Big Daddy, and I was like, yo, that's a really cool name to be. And so I was telling some people about it, and I was like, yo, I'll have my grandkids call me Big Daddy, and it's, no, sir, times have changed, and that is not cool. So when you give yourself a nickname, this actually does play it. So when you give yourself a nickname, it tends to be whack. The warrior lawyer is not one he gave himself. He has been in court, and he doesn't just take the easy cases or whatever. He gets in there and he makes sure that he fights for people's rights and justice. And again, he got a nickname that the community gave him, and he just kept it, not like Big Daddy. I still think Big Daddy could work. I do. I really do. But you know, I'm gonna listen to my friends and family and you know, pull back on that for just a second. And you know, my company, the Grinding Gang, we are helping so many small businesses and nonprofits around the nation. Honestly, I got some clients out in Minnesota, a couple in New Mexico, and so we're really grateful. We have a lot of free resources, templates of like bylaws, contracts, grants. We do grant training. We do business system design and training help and things like that. And a lot of the stuff we do is free because somebody needs to make the investment in the Black community. And I'm not just gonna go ahead and talk about everybody else what they need to be doing. I'm gonna do it myself. So that's everything I need to tell you all right now. No, actually, I lied a lot. Tomorrow, Tasmir has the Blackout Live at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday. Opportunity to get some really great information about business and how you can scale your organization up. Let's see what else is happening. Oh, big shout out to Lisa Morgan of Keaton Eccles. She is going to be a guest in the very near future, talking about how small businesses can get themselves together and really get their message out. You talk about a professional communicator with a couple of decades of experience and active in the community. So, you know, I know dope people and I be bringing them to you, don't I? Another dope person that's coming on with us next week, Dr. Quinyon Scott. I know doctors too, right? Like, I got a whole slew of them around my way, right? So Dr. Scott is going to come in and talk about educational leadership and what we need to do as a community to really get more engaged in our children's lives and their educational and in their education just in general as we move to this new world. Let's not get it twisted. People talk about getting back to normal. There is whatever that was, it no longer exists. There is whatever normal was in 2019 prior, it doesn't exist anymore, and we can't get it back. That is a story in your head that just won't happen. But the other side of it too is that we need to look forward in what will we create the new normal to be. We have an incredible opportunity to be deliberate this time. An opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I got born into some bullshit. Oh, yeah, I caught myself that time. I didn't say the S word, but y'all know what I meant. So okay. Again, being transparent, I have a challenge when it comes to profanity, apparently, and I'm trying to get better with it. It's going to be a struggle for me. So I get excited when I don't curse. I feel progress. So we need to take this opportunity because this is chaos. We need to take this opportunity and really say deliberately, what do we need for our children moving forward? And one of those options is homeschooling. And we're going to bring to the channel or to the broadcast Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman. Like, if you look for Dr. Ali-Coleman, you will find all of this stuff out here. And actually, this is just a snippet because we didn't have enough bandwidth to put it all on there. And so the thing you have to know about Dr. Ali-Coleman is that she doesn't just talk about it, she is about it. She has been actively engaged in women's issues and really making sure that voices of women and families through the arts, through culture, through education, that there is a level of equality. And better than all of that put together, if you squash it together and she's my friend. So without further ado, let me bring to you all Dr. Ali-Coleman. Hey, boo.
Hey, boo, how you doing? So you're not gonna have a commentary about Mosby and all of this stuff happening, and we can't talk about it. So you gotta bring me back or something. Because I was ranting about that myself. I said if I posted on my Facebook, if we were as vigilant against Black female leaders in Baltimore, as we are with Black female leaders in Baltimore, with everybody, just imagine how this world would be. And you said it in a nutshell. You know, it's you know, and I feel, you know, I think of Pugh, I think of Dixon, I think of all of, you know, didn't Sheila Dixon get ousted out of her role for a gift card?
So it was no. So you know what? You started it. You started it. I was gonna go ahead and move on past this, but you started it. So okay, we off the rails now.
Okay. Look. I look at me. This is the white flag. Because you know how we get. We will not talk about homeschool, so we can transition to homeschool. I'm sorry, I did.
No. We're gonna transition to homeschool, but see, one of the things that my audience understands is that we all in this together. Everybody here is part of my mental health journey, and then sometimes I get triggered, and there's stuff I need to talk about.
I triggered you, boo. I'm sorry.
No, it's the story because again, this is, you know, this part I want to separate from my fandom of Mosby.
Right.
So this part is this standard that we hold Black women to in general across all roles. Right. The issue is, you know, I'm sorry, we're talking about the indictment. Somehow they managed to get an indictment of Marilyn Mosby on a business deal that's personal when I'm looking for maybe some text messages from a speaker or a leader of the House. I'm looking for an opportunity for you to come and testify. Hey, how about this? Just don't lie in public and we'll be okay.
Exactly.
But if a Black woman, and so don't get it twisted, the things that Catherine Pugh did were wrong. They were a violation of ethics and things like that. Absolutely. But I also want people to pay attention, using her as an example. She chose the city rather than keep fighting in office and distracting from what was supposed to be happening.
Very quickly. You're right.
And it was like, again, like, you know what? I'm not going to put us through this. I got caught out of pocket. Boom. And some of what has happened and you know, working with some of the businesses and what I have and politicians that I have in my life, I know that there is undoubtedly a level of corruption that runs through, or what will be called corruption. It is I take a little bit more for myself. I take a extra trip that I did. That's part and parcel.
Right.
But the ad hominem attacks on people, when we have people who are in office, and most of them are white boys, who are in office, who are doing their constituents a disservice. And that's just how it is. We have to fight harder against them.
Right.
How is it that Jim Jordan isn't indicted for a whole bunch of stuff right now?
Right. And let us not disconnect these things happening following some type of issue that all of these women have engaged in to make the space equitable for all people, or really to just address something in an equitable way for Black people. You know, I think that Mosby was always going to be, it was going to be something after Freddie Gray. It was going to be something, you know. I think, and those are the things that, you know, and with Pugh, it was going to be something after she wanted Pimlico to be moved out of Baltimore, you know. So I mean, and so I am not that person to say that Black women are above judgment or you know, but it is definitely not equitable in terms of the accountability that we seek for all people, particularly white men and white women. And so it is usually a tactic to dissuade other Black people to get into leadership roles because of this punishment that then ensues that is not equitable across the board. And so that was really my point. It's not really to take away the fact that you need to be accountable, but the fact that this is usually as a form of weaponizing policy when someone has acted on behalf of Black people or people in general, you know?
Absolutely. I remember when I was younger, people would say, well, why don't you run for elected office? I was like, are you crazy? to have my family. And again, because, you know, I did what I did. And if you ask me, did I do it? I'd be like, yeah, I did it. But to have my family go through the level of scrutiny where people are looking at what they did and stuff like that, because I know who I am. I know that there's going to be some things I'm going to say that's not going to make people feel okay. And they are going to attack me because that's the nature of the game. It is a problematic game. I caught myself again. I think I should start getting points when I don't curse. I think that should be something because that was 2 times this early in the show. But
you know, it's also such a blurring between morality and truly what the legal standards are too. So it's a no-win situation a lot of times for people.
I'm sorry, I call bull on you because it's not the legal circumstances that they face. It is the legal circumstances for Black women that they face. You know, there are multiple series justice systems in the United States. Most of them are defined by money. Some of them are because guess what? How dare this Negro woman decide that she wants to come in and tell the good white establishment or the good male establishment what we need to be doing?
Exactly.
How dare she take public funds and treat people like people? I mean, you know, they just need to be. If you are harder on them, if you punish them more, if you make greater laws, if you arrest them, if you take away the benefits, that's how we get control of our community. That's how you raise animals. That's how you raise animals. So one of the other parts about it too is that we don't learn how to be people in our current educational system. In our current educational system, it is all about becoming controlled. What other species has its children sit down for no reason unless it's around eating or it's around safety? Everybody, they learn to explore. That's how they matriculate, but not in our system. Our system is designed around control. The first public education, first law for requiring students to go to school was in the New England states. And it was designed because these kids whose parents had died and they were what they call street urchins, they weren't behaving appropriately in proper Protestant society. So they put together the school. And if you weren't in an official finishing school or something, you had to go here so you could learn how to behave. How to be good employees. That is what our modern education system, that's the predicate of it. And I love what
you're starting from this. Oh my goodness.
Oh, baby, I do segues. Watch this, because I know this is one of the things that the Black homeschool movement can, again, this deliberate opportunity to have a conversation about what should the future for Black children look like. Because if we decide to educate our children, we get to talk about what ethics look like. We get to talk about what equity looks like. We get to talk about why do you need these damn sticks? We need to talk about all of that.
Well, can I jump in?
And so can you tell us a little bit more about Black homeschooling?
Well, I can say, just in response to what you're saying and why it's so brilliant that you're starting there, is because across the board, you know, since 2020 with COVID and everyone now having the idea of homeschooling being vaulted into national conversation. One of the main things that I have consistently been asked in over 24 interviews with folks, whether print or digital, is this whole idea around socialization. When you homeschool, how do the kids being socialized? So your entry point is brilliant because you're starting with what the creation of schools, why they were created, right? But then from our own experience, we were in traditional schools, right? And when I talk about traditional schools, I'm going to be talking about public, private, charter, these traditional ideas of schooling. Right. Well, we were in traditional schools, and we know that when we were in school, we couldn't talk in class. during lunch, we had to be silent or quiet at the very least. When we were walking down the hallway, especially through elementary ages, we couldn't speak in the hallway. So when we even
It was
asked these
about
questions
control.
about, right, so when we and body agency. So I mean, you started it off brilliantly, because how are you now asking me how is a homeschooling child going to be socialized when we look at these traditional school settings and socialization is socializing is
Wait, no,
penalized?
no. I got to give you some pushback on that. Because the traditional schools socialized us in the way that they wanted. They got us used to sitting down in a place for all day. They got us used to following arbitrary rules. We talk about this this letter I saw online all the time here. There was a teacher who wrote to her. Actually, this was the lead in for you yesterday. There was a teacher who wrote to this parent who's like, and I'm gonna use Kari as an example. Excuse me, Dr. Ali-Coleman, Kari, Khadijah's daughter, who is wonderful, amazing, and talented. Her name is Kari, so I make this personal. So Dr. Ali-Coleman, Kari was in my class today, and we were talking about distances. And Kari, I said that a mile is 175 feet, and Kari jumped up and said, "That's not correct. That's wrong. It's 1,035." And she was very disrespectful and very rude. And I told her to sit down, and she told me no, because it was wrong what I was teaching, and you need to intervene with her. Now, granted, she was right about it, but you need to intervene with her because I need her socialized to respect arbitrary authority. I need her when she shows up in the workplace to just be like, well, the boss said do this, but I don't think I should. Because again, talking about traditional schools, I was raised that way. So when I remember we started studying Nazi Germany, and the teacher made a comment about the soldiers being wrong. And I was like, no, the soldiers aren't wrong. The generals are wrong, because all the soldiers did was follow directions. You can't be in trouble if you do, because that's the right thing to do. If somebody's in charge of you, you follow directions. And I didn't even realize I had been socialized already to that point to be like, arbitrary rule, okay.
Right. And I hope people are listening to this and hearing your distinction between socialize, and which is really indoctrination, and so being able to socialize with others. I really hope folks understand the distinction, because that is not, when people pose the question to me, that is not what they mean, because people do not want to admit that that is what is happening in schools. So they are literally referring to the ability to socialize and interact with other people, because people have this false idea that homeschooling is isolation, and that if a child is being homeschooled, then automatically they are not engaging with other people, which is a fallacy, right? And it's, I'm not going to say it's a fallacy, because homeschooling
it's a
families
choice.
are not a monolith, right?
It's a choice, because guess what? If that family who wasn't going to socialize them in homeschooling, they would just, the only time they would have had was while they're in class, because when you get home, they're going to keep you at home anyway. Right. So I get worked up on this because I got opinions.
You're right. You making this easy for me. All I got to say is you right. Ditto.
So let's really start to deconstruct some of these myths about what Black homeschooling is, because I mean that was one of the big ones you hit on, is that all of a sudden I will have a kid that just sits and hello doctor, oh gosh, she's looking at me, what should I do? Like that is the image. So tell us about what the reality is.
Well, this is the thing. Like, there's so much to unpack from what you said that could really take up the whole hour, because that is.
Let's get it. I'll bring you back. This is my show. I'll bring you back, baby.
But when you even said about the socialization and a teacher calling up a parent and saying the child is such and such, I don't even know if you know the story as to why I started homeschooling. Because I was homeschooling off and on, but at fourth grade, I literally had. What'd you say?
Most of her life, you would, because there'd be schools that weren't working well, and you bring her home, and then
I literally had a conversation with a teacher that was very similar to the example that you gave. So I was like, I don't remember telling Will this story.
Yeah, no, that was it.
And what it was, and so even when you talk about socialization, you gave an example. That's why I said it was brilliant. You gave an example as to when the school isn't successful in shaming a child or breaking a child from being outspoken and speaking their truth, then they ask the parent to be complicit in that as well. And
Yes.
I will say to you that no one has ever asked me that, and I have never had the space to give such detail or illustrate it as you did. Quite simply, I usually just give this example as when my daughter was in fourth grade, and so folks know she didn't have problems with assimilating, and she did
No,
well on
she
tests.
is
She was
wonderful.
in a school where the entire school was a so-called talented and gifted school, right? But
Yeah, always.
she was learning to hate learning. She was learning to hate learning.
Say
And in
that
fact,
again.
this teacher, the example that you gave, I had a teacher ask me for a parent conference, and I'm thinking that I'm like, oh my God, what did Kari do? Well, she had finished her test, pulled out a journal and started writing. And the teacher was asking me to tell her to stop doing that because it was distracting the other students who wanted to write too. So rather than this teacher having the wherewithal to take her and maybe say, you finished your test, go sit, go to our reading corner or our writing corner, or create a writing corner if one didn't exist, she felt it easier to come to me to make me complicit in socializing her out of writing, which I had identified very early was my daughter's strength and passion and interest. And so
But guess,
when we talk about homeschooling, we're really talking about advocating for our children in ways where we are we are breathing life and sustaining their love for learning. And because so often, so the choice for me, and I can speak as a homeschooling parent, but also in communing with homeschool children for my dissertation study, where I talked to dual enrolled African American homeschool students who were in their high school years, but they were also dual enrolled in community college. Many of them said that the reasons why they were successful in transitioning to college were these experiences that they had while homeschooling that included being able to self-pace. So whether they wanted to accelerate and go faster, whether they needed to slow down, whether they wanted to have conversations and discussions around things, that they didn't really have that opportunity, because some of the children that I interviewed had similar experiences to my daughter, where they had been in traditional school settings and homeschool, so they were able to compare these experiences. And so, it's you opened up very brilliantly, because the socialization piece, I think, can be expanded outside of just being able to interact with other people to what exactly is happening when people are in these traditional school spaces.
One of the big things about when I thought about homeschooling, because my children, they're special, and they needed. I realized they needed a level of engagement, but I also that if I was going, because I did think about this for a little while, especially as I was making some transitions in life. But one of the things that I was stuck with is like, I don't socialize like the socialization of human engagement. I know that I had a lot of healing to do, and also didn't have the patience for it. And so when you're talking, like, I love the fact that the trigger for you to really commit to homeschooling was this request to be complicit in the activity, and you understood from a mental health perspective and a child rearing perspective the implications. So I'll use myself as an example. I used, when I was in, especially my sixth grade year, I got suspended 8 times that year.
Wow,
And yeah, okay, so it's for a variety of reasons. And I remember the first time that my mother came to the school, I was like, okay, I knew I had done something wrong, and it wasn't even that bad at the time. And she went in and talked to the teacher, and they came out unified front on what was going to happen and why I was in trouble and how I was in trouble. Well, that's what I heard. So for me, what that meant is that it was always going to be me against everybody else. It was all going to be me. Like, I always had to stand alone. And again, I know, because we talked about it since then, I know that was absolutely not what she was going for. She was trying to prevent me, because my mother was trained by the system. She knew that compliance in the system led to reward. If you, I mean, when I worked in education, one of the problems that the school had is that the principal and I wanted to move it to a data-driven organization. And one of the kids came to the principal and was like, you know what? You're messing up my GPA, because now tests are weighted higher than participation points. Because guess what they were doing? They were giving points for participation, and participation for damn letter grade. So again, it was that control: is you follow my rules and you will be rewarded. And homeschooling, some of the challenges, at least for me, was the idea that I would just do the same thing. So how can a person prepare themselves for the parental part of homeschooling?
Wow, these are some of the best questions that I've ever been asked, because what you're doing is acknowledging really how homeschooling is a lifestyle that really is not about the child, but it's also about the parent. It's about the parent preparing themselves. It's this term that's used called deschooling, and it's often used in referencing the experience that you create for your child, where they're kind of getting, it's a paradigm shift for them to move from this idea of what education could be. So you're not bombarding them or replicating in your home this traditional school sense of education. You're kind of getting a sense of who they are as learners, as people, identifying their interests. But that deschooling process also is important for parents as well. And really identifying, the advice that I always give parents is to start with like a mission statement. Reflective idea.
I'm sorry. I think I was gone for a little while. I didn't hear what you said. I apologize.
You were gone, so I'm just talking to myself. So
hopefully the people, well, I'm sure the people heard you, but I did. I apologize for that. When you like when you bump into the mouse a little bit and something happens, like where did the screen go? What happened? Where's it? Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Well, I was talking about deschooling, and I was talking about how you had so brilliantly identified the fact that it's really important for parents to begin this deschooling process, which really allows them to identify what is the purpose of all of this, right? And then when what are the goals and objectives that what is the experience you want to curate for your children, for them to not only be excellent learners, but loving the learning process. And so all of these things start to come up when they reflect on their own experiences, the things that they don't want to replicate for their children. And a lot of our experiences, for those of us who are in traditional learning spaces, we realize that a lot of our learning really required us to be complicit in things that weren't necessarily in our best interest, but made it easier for perhaps a teacher to manage a classroom, for what you're even talking about, for the school to be able to say that we have students of this caliber, so it's more data driven as opposed to what that actual learning experience is for the child. And so when a parent is able to really reflect on those things, they're able to see that homeschooling really can be unique to what the needs are of your learner, but also the capacity that you have as a parent.
Right.
And so a lot of people ask me, oh, you're homeschooling, but you have a doctorate, which I got only less than 2 years ago, right? But it's always something. Oh, you're familiar with education, or your child was talented. What'd you say?
The fruit is still fine, even though it's fresh. Don't get it twisted.
But it's always something to speak to the privileges that I have, or the experiences that I've had, which makes it impossible. And that's also one of the myths of homeschooling, is that all homeschoolers, whereas it's one parent that stays at home, they're of upper or higher middle class. And what we're finding, what it's becoming clear, particularly for Black homeschoolers, is that there's definitely no monolith, that you have homeschooling parents who may be single. You have working class homeschooling parents. My colleague, Cheryl Field Smith, who helped co-found Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars with me, she's a professor out of the University of Georgia. And really, she has been the researcher who's been consistently focused on Black homeschooling for the past 16 years. She has a book out on Black women who are single homeschooling, where some of the women in her study were on welfare. So understanding that this is something that is possible for anyone, but it's really about this paradigm shift that you speak of in terms of what is it that you are, what capacity do you have, and how are you building your capacity to successfully homeschool?
One of the issues around capacity, if we're going to talk about something for real, is that most parents are afraid of being parents. Like, let's be clear. None of us know what the hell we were doing, and we made mistakes. And but we also realize the because of our experience as children, we realize some of the gravity of those mistakes. And we have been, we're kind of afraid and very tepid of like, oh my God, I don't want to scar them. But so let's be clear. You're gonna fuck. Damn it.
You almost made it. You
Almost
almost made
made it. You are going to jack your kid up in some way, shape, or form. There is this idea, especially among Black women, and I will speak to what I understand and what I've been told, is that your role as a mother is one of the defining of your entire character. Everything else around that, whether, if you are incredibly successful, but your kid is not, or your kid is limited, oh, wow. I mean, I guess you chose, huh?
Yeah.
And it is this level of judgment. And so a lot of us are struggling with who we are. Emotionally, mentally. We don't know how we fit in the world around. We have not been able to develop the agency where we can say this is who we are and how we show up. And we are still buying into this idea that we need to be controlled. Like asking people what do they want, they say frivolous things, but then when you ask them what decisions does it take to get there, it's magic. If I just get my LLC, if I just get my doctorate, if I can just get my kid through this next grade, it's always something other than I get to make decisions. And sometimes the consequences of my decisions have nothing to do with me.
Right.
And so
You being there preaching. I need to get my maracas out so I can just shake them. Say yes. I don't have a tambourine in here. Hook has a tambourine in his studio, but I need my maracas. You preaching. I mean, and what you're saying is also speaking to this idea of perfectionism. So if I homeschool, if I can homeschool to perfection, right? And what is perfection? Like what? Then I don't think
a story in your head.
Exactly. And no one has ever asked me about mistakes or the uncomfortableness or what has been hard or challenging. And I actually wrote about that in the chapter in a book that we have coming out, Homeschooling Black Children in the US. Theory, Practice, and Popular Culture is actually available now for pre-order. But I co-edited this book.
No. I'm sorry. There's some rules we have at my show. Okay, certain rules. Okay. One of them is shameless self-promotion. You better tell these people more about that book and how they can find it. Damn it.
Okay. So I am. So
okay, I apologize. You're not going to leave my show and not helping them up.
So in the book, the chapter that I included, because I co-edited it with Cheryl, but I also contributed my own chapter, entitled it Black Excellence, right? Because we hear that. And but what a lot of what the experiences that I included in my chapter was this period of homeschooling through COVID. And I had the privilege of having experience prior to COVID. And then my daughter's final semester of her junior year and her entire senior year of high school being homeschooled was through COVID. And so I spoke about what were some of the challenges that we had, because it's this fallacy again, this fallacious thinking where homeschooling means you always in a home. No. So COVID led to closures. A lot of our homeschooling, particularly for for high school, revolved around trips, whether we were going to the library or the museum or just, outside of the home. She would come with me a lot to places that I worked. I was teaching. But just being out of the house, being mobile, being able to engage with other people. So when quarantine hit, we really limited our interaction with other people. This led, all kinds of depressive experiences started to ensue. But then the whole college application process, there were just so many things where cropped up as being challenges. And so I don't ever want to give the impression that because you can homeschool and that, it's possible, that it will be absent of any type of challenge. But the difference is that those challenges are the normal challenges of parenting, as you mentioned, Will, that, these are things that we're going to encounter whether or not our children are in traditional schooling spaces or if we're homeschooling. And what so often we are not able to differentiate are what our responsibilities are as parents. And so a lot of times we're putting on schools what we believe they should be doing when it should be something, when it speaks back to how we're showing up as parents. What are we doing? What are we engaging our children in as parents? And so, I've had folks speak to, I'm a parent, and so whether or not my child is in a school, they're going to be learning XYZ in home. Well, that's real, but that's not the reality for everyone. And so when you homeschool, you start to realize that there's certain practices that are going to exist that you create for your child, that regardless of where they go, where they are, they're going to continue. And that's the type of autonomy that has been so beneficial and helpful to me. And I think those are some of the things I would characterize that as being the feedback that I received from the children that were in my study for my dissertation.
So the two pieces that, because again, you don't even know what you do, you be triggering me and you don't even understand it. Shout out to Shonda Duncan, incredible math teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. But she and I talk about this often. The school is now the supplement for the other failed institutions in the community. Your family doesn't work. So now, I mean, think about it. There was an entire segment of educational history where we were trying to integrate from a government perspective character into the curriculum. So even the character development was trying to be controlled by the government to tell us what our families and our children needed to be. When I remember one of the perspective altering stories that I have is I had an internship at the mayor's office, and this was back when Baltimore City was always in the red. This back in our UMBC days. Okay. Shout out to Trevers in the house. But so I was there, and because I was, before I had kids, I was one of those, well, I can tell you what to do. The issue is you're not logical enough about the way you approach this.
Don't lie, you still like that.
No, but honestly, no, the difference is when I'm right about the new things. The old things I was absolutely wrong about. The new things I'm absolutely totally different.
Okay.
So the news, it was Dr. Walter Ampery, and the media hated him. And the school system was in the red and all of that. And they asked him, they said, it was a snow day and he didn't close schools until hit 2 hours left. And they were like, you put kids at risk. You're running in the red. If you had kept closed schools, on this Friday, you would have been able to save, I think, like $1.5 million, which would have gone to the budget, blah, blah, blah. And everybody else closed around you. Why would you be so irresponsible? Do you know what he said? He said 70% of the students in Baltimore City Public Schools live below the poverty line. 85% of them qualify for free or reduced lunch. So the next time, if I close school on Friday, the last meal they'll get would be the lunch I gave them for some of them, the lunch I gave them on Thursday, until I give them breakfast again on Monday morning, if I can open schools back up. In that moment, it all shifted for me, and I understood that at schools, because I only came to school for education. That's because my other needs were met at home. So I didn't understand. I thought, it was nice to have lunch. That meant my parents didn't have to pay for it. But hearing him say that, it transformed the entire issue to one of social support. And it helped me understand, to your point, that the schools aren't just here about education anymore. And when you put those additional burdens on them, now they're supplementing parenting. And now that's why you are asked to become complicit in there, because now you've abdicated your responsibility for control to the school system so that they can help build a kid like you, like they have. Now, one other thing that you said that it just occurred to me when you were talking about the things that you do as part of homeschooling, how it's not just we sit inside in a room in the basement and read books. What you described, because I went to a traditional school, but I think we may have to reframe, because there are traditional schools that are modeled just like that. the things that you described, but they're ones that are so far, like I found out about them as I got older, started doing stuff with more professional people, and found out where they were sending their kids to school. Like the stuff you are talking about Black homeschool does exist, except that there are elite schools where it's 20, 30,000 a year. This is the curriculum they're using.
Exactly. You know, there's so many curriculum, like, you know, from Waldorf to Montessori. I love these things that you're saying and bringing up, because you know, you just go deeper into the rabbit hole, and it's exactly what we are not reinventing the wheel. This is
right.
And even when we even think about how schools began, particularly in our community, I know someone who shout out to Dr. Ola. He was a student at Morgan State University when I was assistant director of residence life there, now more than 10 years ago. He just recently got his doctorate, but he sent my way that there's a talk that's coming up at the Smithsonian around education. Of course, they don't have anyone on the panel talking about homeschooling, but they, in their advertisement for it, they have there is an exhibit, because this is going to be at the Blacksonian. And so they have an exhibit there of a bench that was in a Rosenwald school. And Rosenwald schools, for those who may not know, were a series, hundreds of schools that were developed at the turn of the century, when Black people were able to, you know, to start schools for their children. And there was a philanthropist named Rosenwald who was brought into the picture by people such as Booker T. Washington to fund schools. But what these schools had to demonstrate was that there was a need and want for these schools. So they had to raise money in their community, and, you know, whether it was a church or what have you, and then Rosenwald would match funds. And so for those who are in the nonprofit world and familiar with grants and the whole idea of matched funds, that actually comes from Rosenwald schools. But I bring that up because these early schools, and I know about this because my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather, Susie and Ira Lewis, they actually were on the front end creating or building these Rosenwald schools in Louisiana and Mississippi at the turn of the century. And my great-grandfather, Ira Lewis, has
wait, real quick. I love this part. You mean the turn of the other century? Because it's 2000.
That's right. Let me get with the times, right? Well, you know, so Ira Lewis actually has a school named for him in Ruston, Louisiana, I.A. Lewis.
Wow.
But my grandmother wrote this unpublished memoir where she talks about the things that she did growing up in these schools, everything from oration. And there were hands-on things and things that it's like, what? Like, there's no experience of living people who have had these experiences in schools, but many of them mirror the things that we are incorporating in homeschool. And it speaks to what you're also talking about, the things that are happening in these schools, these private schools that are really out of the budget of the common or the average American, right? But what also there's in Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, where he gives a portrait of Bill Gates' background. It made me think of because what he also is mentioning is talking about access. And so, you know, Bill Gates, for anyone who didn't read the book, Gladwell paints this portrait of Gates, of course, going to this elite school, but also having access to work in environments where the early computers were being built. So it's not just so imagine, for all of you who have children who are into Minecraft and Roblox and all of these things, and not necessarily just playing it, but you have access to the space where it's being built. Imagine the difference in that experience. And so when we're talking about these hands-on activities that things and children are engaging in, also think about access. And so when I think of, you know, when my daughter was being homeschooled through high school, I was always, if I was going to have somebody teach her other than myself, I was looking for people who would give her access, folks who are actively doing what it is that she wants to do, not someone who has an aspiration to do it, but someone who is actively doing it. And in many cases, she was able to engage in things as would a professional, as someone doing
Right.
it, as opposed to this is a kid
Ooh.
who is, preparing to be able to do it, but this is someone who is actively doing it. And I have an arts company, Liberated Muse.
Shut
So
it out. Shut it out. No, shut it out. Shut it out. Liberated Muse in the house.
right, liberatedmuse.com. But my daughter was often our stage, our
Yes, she was.
technical manager, our stage
And did a
manager.
damn good job too.
Thank you. Well, anything from lighting to sound. She, the company will tell you she had her notes, because she has a theater background, so she would give us feedback before we go out to perform. And so that led to her having opportunities, such as getting a grant from the Kennedy Center to do a short film while she was still homeschooling for high school. And so this access is not just about experiences. What are how are we considering access for our children? How are we even, so that socialization piece is key as we expound on what does that mean? Does it mean us keeping children tethered to this idea of experiences only based on learning level or age?
Right.
Or is it really about creating a learning experience where they're not stopped from being able to advance or to navigate spaces as they show up and as they're ready? And so that is one of the things that I'm learning more from other homeschooling parents, but also from my own experience as a homeschooler, that there is no end to the possibilities, because it really is about who you are as a parent and who your children are as learners.
And one of the things that my ex-wife Lynn and I used to talk about, big shout out to Lynn, always doing the damn thing, cooler than a fan. Her only flaw used to be that she had bad taste in men, but it looks like she fixed that.
You're crazy.
So, but one of the things we used to talk about is how ridiculous it was that the ridiculous was the structure of grades in public schools. Because why does it make sense that, let's say you even have two gifted kids, that both of them would be in the same place and need to learn the same thing in math the same year? And the thing is, like, we used to have these tests, and my kids tested pretty high on the test, and so it would say, you're in the third grade, but you're reading on a sixth grade level. So I'm like, so can he do sixth grade work?
Have you told these people how your children are geniuses?
Well, I told them, they're pretty smart, but like I didn't really go into it. Well, in the co-parenting thing, I told them about. I was thinking about bringing one or both of them on to to really talk about and let the world know what their perspective is on the old man. So not Big Daddy though, but not Big Daddy, but the old man. So I'm trying to work out a new nickname.
Yeah, don't bring that up again. Don't Big Daddy. Don't ever do that again. Never. Just. But you have a son who is a math teacher, who's a brilliant math teacher, who served as a tutor. Who served as a tutor for my daughter when she was homeschooling for high school.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
He was still a student at Morgan State University, and your other son is currently at A&T, trying to stay, and they trying to be like, you done taken all the classes, like you done everything, because he's such a brilliant physicist. So that would be great to have them on the show, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
You and Lynn have been excellent parents to your children, and have made, and the fact they are success stories, I think, of traditional schooling. And I think that it's important for us to know that I'm not on here talking about homeschooling to say that all children are going to be scarred for life coming out of traditional school spaces. But I really do think that it's designed in ways that all children cannot thrive, and that homeschooling does allow a space for children to thrive who are not thriving in the traditional school setting. But your children are stellar examples of learners and thinkers, and you should be very proud.
I am. And you know what? I don't know whether you were looking at the clock or not, but you timed that right well into the lead off. So as we get ready to go, tell them how they can give you money. Go ahead and tell them how they can give you some money. Tell them where they can buy, because the other thing, she is multi-talented. In Liberated Muse, they do trainings and developments for art. I'm telling it. I'm telling you to tell it, then I start telling. Go ahead, you tell them about how they can get you money.
Well, I would love it if folks wanted to connect with me around homeschooling to check out our website at blackfamilyhomeschool.org. On that page is also a link to pre-order our book that is forthcoming. It should be out in February or earlier. The publisher hasn't the date keeps shifting, but I know that because they have a pre-order link that it should be out shortly. And you
Is
can
that it?
email me. Yes, that's it. And you can
Okay.
actually email me at hello@blackfamilyhomeschool dot is .org and .com. So you can reach
Oh,
us
you
at
got
org.
see that
Yeah,
now. You know
I
what?
bought both the domains in case people jack it up. So it
Hey,
comes
dude.
to
You know what?
us,
I
right?
got to give you. We give props for props too. That is a really good business move. That is an example of understanding the market space that you engage in and your target customer. High five!
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. But if you email me, I can send you a discount code to purchase the book. And so I want to track
Ooh.
to see who is buying the book. So email me hello@blackfamilyhomeschool.org. And so if you would like to learn more about me in general, my email address, I mean, my website is Khadijah online. KhadijahAli-Coleman.com. And so if you see my name up here, it's all together, KhadijahAli-Coleman.com. And
No hyphen.
you can read my dissertation, and you can also find out how to book me if you'd like me to come speak to your parent group, or if you'd like any information on any of the books. I have a children's book out, Mariah's Maracas, illustrated by my partner, that's also for sale. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, Hannah Blue. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
absolutely. And this ain't going to be the last time because I think we need to have a conversation where it's just about education. It's a free fall. Just go in it.
Yeah.
Um, Ladies and gentlemen, again, Dr. Ali-Coleman, thank you very much. And we're looking forward to having you back again.
Oh, wonderful. I hope to be able to return, and best of luck to you in the new year.
All right. Thank you. Bye. Oh, my God. We did it again, y'all. We made it to the end of the show. I had a great time. I'm tired now. I'm going to lay down because she got me. See, I need to, so what I need y'all to do is just in the comments, put in some of the things that you all have identified as some of my trigger warnings so I can give these guests an opportunity because my heart is fluttering a little bit. She got me worked up. I'm gonna lay myself down after this one. So tomorrow. Oh, no, not tomorrow. Monday, we have Dr. Jakin Cash. And I told you, I know a bunch of doctors. He's coming through, and we're going to talk about equity, particularly for the reentry in the LGBTQ community. This is William Honolulu Jr. saying, have a great, great weekend. Bye.